Welcome back to the VR Aperture, your source for the most detailed news in virtual reality and reviews from an engineer's perspective. This week we'll be returning to our multi-part review series on the Index Virtual Reality Kit. Part 3, Controller Design. So like I mentioned in my previous video, there's a lot of new features with these controllers. Some of them worked out well, some of them not that well, and I'm going to cover all of them and give you the honest truth. I really appreciate Valve with this version including dual thumbsticks. If you've seen the previous version, there were no thumbsticks. It was nothing but a touchpad up here, the full top surface. And I love getting around in specifically like Space Junkies with the dual thumbsticks. It just feels, it feels like I'm really operating a jetpack, and I love that sensation. Though there is an issue with the thumbstick, and that is that not only is there no stick click sensation like there is when you're in the home position. You can hear that? The stick click when you push the thumbstick up, there is no stick click. And this has been a widespread issue across Valve Index consumers, that not only are they not getting the stick click sensation, but that it's not registering the stick click at all. And if you're familiar with first-person shooter type games, the up and stick motion is very common to initiate from a run to a sprinting. And so it's very important to have that, and it's not engaging for many of the Valve Index consumers. And so I, having the same problem, contacted Steam myself. So supposedly Steam wasn't really acknowledging that there was an issue. They just said, oh, by design, there is no stick click sensation when in the forward position. I don't know if I believe that, because there's already a YouTuber that has disassembled his controller, which I don't recommend. It will void your warranty, but he disassembled it and found that there is a clearance issue actually with the stick click when it's in the forward position, and that it's potentially not a design idea, more likely a design flaw. And he had found a way to open up that clearance, and the stick click and sensation was restored. But since there's been so many consumers complaining about this issue, Steam has initiated a procedure for handling this, and they have created a new diagnostic tool they included with the last Steam update, and you can actually go in and get a visual confirmation on whether or not it's engaging the stick click. In addition, another really cool feature is that they included a way to adjust what true north is on the thumbstick, which I'm very happy about, considering straight up for the controller is not ergonomically straight up for your hand. Back to the point with the thumbstick click, I'm curious to see whether they just replace a good working part, being the thumbstick itself, and send it back to me, or if they're going to actually correct the design flaw, and which I suspect that YouTuber is correct, that there is a clearance issue. The initial response was to just push harder. By a combination of using the diagnostic tool and pushing harder with more pressure, I was able to confirm that it will engage the stick click, but I would be concerned about breaking a thumbstick of this size quite easily with that amount of pressure. And also it just won't be a very smooth experience when you're in VR, that every time you want to try and run away from an enemy, you're going to attempt several times to hit the stick click and then remember, oh, I got to push it extra hard. I feel will diminish your experience. In addition to that, the thumbstick has actually made the touchpad pretty much obsolete. They serve almost identical functions. The only function that the touchpad for the thumb includes that the thumbstick does not is a pressure sensor, so you can push harder or lighter in or register that pressure. The fact that by keeping the touchpad after including the thumbstick, they've had to change it into an oval shape, and it is not just an up and down thumb touchpad. It is a left and right as well. And being that they crowded in with the thumbstick, and being the size of my thumbs, when I try to push forward and left or push forward and right on this controller, I make contact with the thumbstick, and I experience a judder where the game is trying to determine which input I really want, and ultimately it gives me nothing. So I'll be in the middle of specifically Orbis VR, trying to get away from an enemy, and I'm trying to sprint and get away, and I can't get going. I can't get going. And it's very frustrating. And so I haven't really put a lot of time in Orbis VR for that reason. It's partially Orbis VR developers' implementation of the thumbstick, and a combination of Valve crowding these two things in makes locomotion without comfort controls in Orbis VR quite frustrating. And I really do prefer thumbsticks. I have a lifetime of muscle memory built up and precision control, and changing now to, maybe I am old, but switching at this point to touchpads, I feel I kind of have to relearn all that muscle memory and precision. And two, look at how big my thumbs are. Look at this blunt instrument I have to work with. This is why I don't like text messaging. Every time I try to text message, I hit 4 letters at a time. And I spend more time hitting backspace than I do putting in letters. And so using this blunt object instrument for precision control is not preferable. So I'm really happy that they included thumbsticks. I kind of wish that they would have just done away with the touchpad altogether. I don't know how much the pressure sensor is going to come into play into video games if you can't really apply thumb pressure to this without applying finger pressure. You don't have anything to push against. So you could pretty much just bind those two things together, that if you're applying pressure here, you can assume you're applying pressure with the thumb. I know they want to make it as immersive as possible, but they've crowded this surface way too much. They should have just done away with the touchpad, in my opinion, and just stuck with the thumbsticks, even considering the fact that they might be a weak point in the future. We will find out about that. Another obvious oversight, in my opinion, I really wonder if they had no one in the office during the design of this that had large hands, because why does this pull cord not go all the way to the bottom? When I put my hand in, it's wider than this area from here to here. So when I pull down the pull cord, it actually pinches the skin right here. And though it's not painful, it's not comfortable either. And then I mentioned with in the construction video, what I thought might be a weak point with this metal anchor. There's a small clearance in between here where the web of my thumb and forefinger wedge underneath there. So it doesn't really give me a secure place to push up against so I can stay choked down. If my hand automatically slides up and then my thumb is far past the touchpad, and it makes it difficult for me to touch the bottom of the touchpad, difficult for me to hit the A button, and then the menu button is nearly impossible for me to touch. And so had they brought this all the way down or reduced this clearance here, the controller wouldn't automatically choke up as I shake it around, and then one, making it difficult for me to hit all the buttons, but two, the controller has to readjust to my finger location. I had mentioned in a previous video, and I'm happy to report that my information was accurate, that the controller does actually learn the more you use it. As I was first using it, I was having a little bit of trouble, but the more I played, the more accurate the tracking got, and I was suspicious that they included like learning software into it. And Steam, I wrote Steam, and they reported back and confirmed that in fact, if you drum your fingers on the touchpad, repeatedly place them on the home position, it will calibrate automatically, and this is why they did not include a calibration for the rest of your fingers with the new diagnostic tool that they released. So that is cool about the finger tracking, but not so cool about the fit. You would think that with this being adjustable, that all the way up is for larger hands, but you would be wrong. In fact, putting it all the way down makes it so it helps the user choke down on the controller if they have larger hands, so their thumb doesn't overlap. But like I said, the implementation isn't that great, and my hand tends to slide up, choke up, and then I have difficulty hitting the buttons properly. So I kind of have to adjust while I'm playing somewhat frequently. I still really enjoy these controllers, even with all that. And one last thing that would help with fit is if you've ever seen a Cytec flight stick, this top portion here they had was flexible. It had a little Allen bolt here, and they provided an Allen key, and you could loosen it and this would adjust, and it would compensate for people with larger thumbs or longer thumbs. So you would flex it down for people with longer reach and flex it up for people with a shorter reach. Unfortunately, they didn't include anything like that in the design. I will have a tip video to help with guiding you for getting most ideal fit for when using your index controller. I find that if I put this all the way down or to the second to lowest down and put it across the pads of my fingers, everything kind of lines up better. But unfortunately, with it not being in the center of my palm, as you shake your hand around, it tends to slip and it wants to go into that groove in the palm of your hand. And then you kind of, once again, lose that ideal finger position, and two, the controller has to readjust for your finger location since it adjusts on the fly. I do think it's really neat though, if you saw my previous video where I demonstrate the controllers in VR with my real hands overlaid, I thought it was pretty neat that each one of these actually registers touch without actually engaging the button. So in addition to it tracking your fingers, it will actually track your thumb position. So if you close your hand, you'll get a choice between this or this or this. And so that's kind of neat. And when your hand is open, it'll be like this or like this. And so that's also kind of neat. I don't know how much that will be used in any games, but the accurate tracking is pretty neat, and the immersion factor is pretty cool. So, and that's where, if you bought these, that's really what you were looking for, was the immersion factor, I believe. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I appreciate you returning to the VR Aperture once again. We covered a lot today. I appreciate you sticking with it. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you'd like to support this channel, please subscribe. It helps us a great deal. We're currently trying to reach the goal of 100 subscribers so we can get our custom YouTube web address. So we thank you in advance and want to wish you a happy rest of your week.